Hi there and welcome. My name is Michael Kentenich and I'm a Microsoft Technical Trainer. In this video, let's find out together how to fortify your data fortress with Azure Storage security. Let's describe the security capabilities of storage accounts, identify the three types of shared access signatures, and explain when to implement shared access signatures and what a storage access policy is and how to use it. In the realm of enterprise computing, Azure Storage smoothly integrates with Azure Robust Identity and Access Management Framework. As a fundamental security measure, data is automatically encrypted at rest, ensuring confidentiality and compliance. Additionally, enterprises leverage shared access signatures or SAS, which are signed uniform resource identifiers containing a token and specific query parameters. These tokens precisely define how authorized clients can access storage resources, granting controlled and secure interactions. When storing data in a storage account, you should always assign the appropriate roles to everyone and everything that needs access to the data through role-based access control, or RBAC. Follow the least privilege principle by allowing only the minimum level of access to operations on either resource management or data operations. If you need to grant access to anyone or anything that doesn't have an identity in your Entra ID tenant, then shared access tokens is a good option to provide delegated access to data objects. And I hope you sleep better at night knowing that all data, including metadata, written to Azure Storage is automatically encrypted using the Storage Service Encryption Service, SSE. By the way, Azure Storage Encryption is always on for any storage account, whether they are new or old, and you can't turn it off. You don't have to change your code or applications to use Azure Storage Encryption because your data is protected by default. You have, although, the option to use keys that either Microsoft manages for your storage account encryption, or you can use your own keys. If you decide to use your own keys, you have two choices. You can use a customer managed key that will encrypt and decrypt all the data in your storage account, and a customer managed key applies to all the data in the services in your storage account. You can also use a customer-provided key on blob storage operations only. A client that makes a read or write request to blob storage can include a key on the request for more control over how blob data is encrypted and decrypted. And last but not least, data in transit between an application and Azure is safeguarded through multiple channels like client-side encryption, HTTPS, or the Server Message Block Protocol 3.0. Let's put some SAS to your storage account. A shared access signature offers safe, authorized access to resources in your storage account. With such a SAS, you can specify how a client can access your data. For example, which resources the client can access, what kind of permissions they have to those resources, and how long the SAS is effective. Three types of SAS are offered. A user delegation SAS uses Microsoft Entra ID credentials and the permissions that are set for the SAS to protect its access. Note, a user delegation SAS only works with blob storage, not with file shares, for example. A service SAS uses the storage account key to provide security. It grants access to a resource in all four Azure Storage services: blob storage, queue storage, table storage, or Azure Files. And an account SAS uses the storage account key to authorize access. An account SAS grants access to resources in one or more of the storage services. All of the operations that a service or user delegation SAS can do are also possible with an account SAS. Best practices come to play. As a way of minimizing the possible dangers of using a SAS, Microsoft offers some advice. Always use HTTPS when you share a SaaS to avoid any interference from third parties. A user delegation SaaS is the safest type of SaaS. You should use it as much as you can because it avoids keeping your storage account key in code somewhere. And you have to use an Enter ID to handle credentials. This option may not be feasible for your solution, so a SaaS is another option. Always use expiration time on a SaaS. Plus, choose the shortest possible expiration time for your SaaS. If someone gets access to your shared access signatures, at least they can only use it for limited time. Apply here to the rule of minimum required privileges. Only grant the access that's required. For example, in your app, read-only most of the time is absolutely sufficient. Sometimes a SaaS is not the right option. If using a SaaS could pose a high risk, you should create a middle-tier service that handles users and their access to storage. A shared access signature is a string that is added to the URI for an Azure Storage resource. The string has a specific set of query parameters that specify how the client can access the resources. One of the query parameters, the signature, is made from the SaaS parameters and signed with the access key that was used to make the SaaS. The signature is used by Azure Storage to grant access to the storage resource. There are a couple of other components that are important here, like the rights or the start time, the expiration time, the specific scope. All these different parameters are part of that token. Are you interested in seeing how SaaS are created and used, and what a stored access policy is, and how you can use this to even get more flexibility? Follow me into the next demo. In this video, I will show you how to create a shared access signature for Azure Storage. We're looking at a storage account that I have already created. It's the storage account for Contoso in EC2 AZ-001. Now, in this storage account, I have a couple of different containers, blob containers created, and one of them has a file in it with this really long name from a quick start example. And if I open this up, this text file, I can actually read it and see that it says hello world. So of course, it wouldn't be a developer course if we wouldn't have a hello world example in here. So now if I check this overview of this file, and it does not show this right now here because I have a couple of things toggled here, but I will actually copy this out and then show you the URL that it has in here. So maybe to make this even a bit more visible for you, let me show this in Notepad so you can see what that URL would look like. It shows me the unique name of that storage account with the service domain blobcorewindows.net, and then it comes back with the container and the file name. All of that is very long, that's why it looks so weird. So what happens when I fire this up here in the browser? Nothing. It tells me here, no, you don't have access to this because I have not allowed so-called anonymous access. And since this is just a browser trying now to read my file, it says, no, you can't do this. So what can I do to make this possible? If I go back to this file, then for this specific blob, I have an option. I mean, not this specific for all blobs. I have this option to generate a SaaS, that's a shared access signature. If I open the dialog up here, it will give me a couple of options. In the SaaS here, I can configure a few things like the signing key, which is tied back to the access keys of that storage account. So the default is key 1. That will be used to sign the signature in here, or that is the will sign the token that we will use. I can choose one of those, and as long as this key remains valid, the signature will actually work. I can set up the permissions that I want to give. So let's say I want you just to be able to read this specific file. So I will just leave that. And for each SaaS token, you should always configure both a start and an end time, an expiration time. You can see here that it uses just specific timing here and adds 8 hours to it. Maybe that's okay for me right now. So otherwise, you can just figure out whatever is it. But don't configure it too long. Keep it as short as possible. So don't give this out longer than necessary. You can even limit this to certain IP addresses, to limit this for a specific service or a platform that you're using. And then I can say if I would like to allow HTTP as well, but that's pretty much I can do from here. So if I generate this token, it will give me here, and now I have to untoggle this so you can see this actually. I have two things. One is the blob SaaS token, which is just a token that has embedded all the kind of properties I just explained. It has the expiration time, the start time in it, the permissions, and here at the end is the signature, the beginning of the signature. And then at the end, I have the full-blown URL that now has not only the link that I've used before, if I open up my notepad again. So let me just show you here what is now different. It's the same thing as before, but all it has added is this part here, which has the parameters and the signature in it. Now, whoever has this link with this specific URL and signature can read my file. Is that true? So let's figure it out. So try again, same browser window, and now it's downloading the file, which is another way of doing this. Depending on the name, it either shows this in the browser, or I will just now, let's say I open this up. Let's check if that's really the file. And yeah, it's coming up on the other screen. So here, in fact, is the Hello World example from this file that I just downloaded. So yeah, that works. I can access this now. Now, this is for a single file. And of course, that's probably not the same thing that's a thing that you always want to do. So there are different other SaaS tokens. But before we go there, there's one important thing. When you create a SaaS token, and now I close this dialog, it is gone. It will still work. It still allows access, but it won't be stored anywhere. If you want to have that stored somewhere, you have to do it yourself. Azure is not taking care of this. It's not tracking this. It's not storing it anywhere. Be aware that if you want to keep those tokens around, you need to keep track of them yourself. So I don't need this. I want to show you that was for a blob itself. I can also do this on the container level. So let's say I want to create a token for the container, for all the blobs in one container. I can go ahead here and then create a shared access token. And in here, looks pretty similar as before. I have the same options. I can give certain permissions. And of course, with containers, it might make a little more sense than to a specific blob. But other than this, it's completely the same set of features. But if you share this, someone will have access to, whoever has this URL has access to the whole container with all the blobs in it, based on whatever you provide in here. And I can even go one step further and go to the storage account level. And on the storage account level, under security networking, I can create a shared access signature that allows not only access to a specific blob container, but the whole service of blob in addition to the file service, the queues, the tables, if I have any of those in my storage account. And then you can set exactly the permissions you want in here. So should they have available, let's say I want just access for the blob and file, and then just for containers, object, and the service itself. What kind of permissions do I want? Maybe they should not delete something. They should not work with any deletion of the versions. And this is what I want to do. The rest is, as we saw it before, works in the same way. If you generate this kind of SaaS, that is now on the account level, you can see that you get a connection string and a token for each of those services. So it's the same token, but you have a URL for each of the services. And in this connection string, I have all the individual services listed. Even the queue endpoint, although I have not selected, so be a bit careful in here. That might provide an error message at some point, depending on how you use this. Now, if you give someone this that is using an application or the Storage Explorer, they can access your whole storage account and create containers in it, create file shares in it, and more. In this video, I will show you how to create a shared access signature using a stored access policy. Have you worked with SaaS tokens before, with blob storage? Then you probably know that if you have a file that you would like to give someone access to without having an identity and a login to your Azure subscriptions and access to the resource, you can give them a SaaS token or a full-blown URL to allow them to read a certain file. So if I generate a SaaS for this file in here, I get a URL that is shown to me once. And if I go ahead and I open this up now in a browser, I have access to the file that is in here. It doesn't really believe that it's a safe file in here, but that's a different thing. But yeah, anyone who has this file, this link now gets this file. What if I made a mistake? What if I don't want you to have this access anymore? What can I do? This SaaS token was signed by the access key. So I can go ahead and go to my storage account, change to access keys. And I know it was signed by access key 1. So if I go ahead and rotate that, meaning it will be regenerated, yeah, I revoke that access level. So if I go now in here and try to refresh, it will take a couple of seconds. But if maybe it's also caching this, so let's see if I can now show this in, it's still doesn't like that site, but it says here, yeah, authentication failed. And the reason here is that the signature is not working. So the string to sign, use, blah, 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 it did not match. The signature did not match. But the problem is that is not now true. This is not just true for this one SaaS. It's true for all that were signed with access key 1, and that's a lot, maybe depending on how often you give them out. So it would be great if there would be a nicer way of doing this, and there is. So on a container level, if I go to the container section where I have my files in it, I can open up that container where I have this file to, and on the left-hand side, I can create an access policy, or actually just go there and then create an access policy. How does it look like? So I add a policy. Let's say I have a specific project, like a project A, B, for example. And for that project, I would like to have everyone to read and list rights to all the different items that I will make available by that policy. And also I can go ahead and say that should be starting today. And it should start, maybe at that time around midnight. That's great. So it works now definitely. And it should end at the end of this month because it's not very that far away. So let's say we do this tomorrow. Now I will create that policy now. It's very important to click that floppy disk here in the cloud computing world to save this. Otherwise it will not show up. And what can I do with this now? You're probably aware that you can go and create a SaaS token, right? So I just showed you how to do this with this specific container. So let's do this again, not for the container though, but we do this for the file again. Now with this, I will again create a SaaS like before with one difference. Now I will select here the stored access policy, and I see my project AB in here. So other than this, or actually it is not the same experience like before, because everything I defined in the policy, I cannot change. The permissions are set in the policy. I cannot change them. The date, the expiration date is set in the policy. I cannot do this. The only thing I can do, I can further limit this to only a few IP addresses if I want to. But that's not what I want right now. But let me show what the reason is why I did use this policy. Now, if I take this URL, which looks a little bit different from before, because if you look closely, you see here that it has a signature identifier, which has the name of that policy in it. So if I fire this up, yeah, I can access the file. So let's say now again, I did make a mistake. I gave it out now to the world and I want to revoke this. But if I rotate the key again, then everyone will be mad at me. So I can go and configure my policy here. And let's say project AB is over. So I go ahead and delete this. Policy gone. Important to remember to save this. And now if I wait a few seconds and I try the same thing again, this is the one where I just used this with the project AB, I will refresh this and it says, no, that doesn't work. And it doesn't work because the SAS identifier cannot be found for the specific signed identifier. And that is what the policy did. But all the other SAS tokens that were signed by other policies or by the keys in general, they still work as long as nobody did use the same policy. For blob containers and blobs, individual access policies gives you the most flexible and secure way, and you can revoke access much easier than just to go and rotate your access keys. A SAS is often helpful for a service where users access their own data in your storage account. Two common design patterns for a storage account that holds user data are: first, the client send and receive data through a front-end proxy service, which checks the identity of the users. This front-end proxy service also enables verifying business rules. But for big data or frequent transactions, building a service that can scale to meet demand may be costly or hard. A simple service verifies the client if required and then creates a SAS. The client application can access storage account resources directly after getting the SAS. The SAS specifies the access permissions and the time period allowed by it, and since the SAS allows direct access to the resource, it reduces the need to send all data through the front-end proxy service. A combination of these two approaches may be used by many services in the real world. For example, the front-end proxy might process and validate some data. Other data is stored and/or accessed directly through the SAS. Congratulations on exploring the security features of Azure Storage and mastering shared access signatures. With these powerful tools at your disposal, you can confidently authorize access to storage resources while maintaining control over security policies. Safeguard your data and empower your applications with Azure Storage security features today. Thanks for watching. Keep on learning.